Thank you, Hope, for allowing me to do this. This is very near and dear to me, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I just want to say something, Hope, that my name, Nadia, in Ukrainian, means hope. We have the same name. And it came to me after the fact. I'm like, we have the same name. But anyway, I've been speaking about in various locations and throughout the years. It's near and dear to me, especially in today's world, especially what is happening in the world today, correct? Not only with Russia invading Ukraine, but also Hamas invading Israel. The wars continue with these bullies and these people that just can't get enough of what they have. They murder, they slaughter, they rape, for what? So, in 1932 and 1933, my father was 3 years old. I remember this story from my grandmother. During this famine, and I'm going to go through it in a minute, my grandmother could not feed my father. He was the youngest. So the Soviets said, well, you can't feed him. He has 2 choices. You could kill him or sell him. That's it. So to the Soviets, life means nothing. Look at what is happening today with Putin. It's a continuation of what happened back then under Stalin. And I don't want to be too political, but the world just continues, and we continue to have wars and fight against communism and get nowhere. So at some point, my hope is that this will end and people will live in peace. So, Ukraine is very close to Russia here. This is a very important piece of land. It's a crossroads through Eurasia. Right? It has resources, minerals, it has fertile land. If you guys know about the black dirt area in Pine Island, that is what they have in Ukraine, the breadbasket of Europe. And yet, people died by the millions. So Ukraine is a large country. It is entirely in Europe. They are fighting for recognition to be in the EU, as well as part of NATO. And this is another threat to Russia. They do not want NATO. They do not want Ukraine part of the West. The capital is Kiev, although the capitals have changed throughout history. Right? My mother was from the West, Lviv. At one point, that was the capital. Kharkiv was a capital at one point as well. We know what's happening with Kharkiv now. They're destroying it. Kiev is being bombarded daily. It is located north of the Black Sea. We know what happened there. The Russians blockaded any of the grain coming out, causing what? More world hunger. Some things have just not changed. It borders Poland, Belarus, Russia, Moldova, Romania, Slovakia, and Hungary, and that is a concern. That at any time the Belarusians can come down and attack from the north, whereas Russia is attacking from the east. And of course, they have the Navy in the Black Sea that is continually sending missiles, because they do have long-range capability, to various towns and cities in Ukraine, just haphazardly. It's psychological warfare, besides killing people. The population at one point was 46 million, and we are an Eastern Slavic culture. We were a breadbasket of Europe. Very fertile grain. Our flag is blue and yellow. Blue for the sky, yellow for the grain. In 22, most of Ukraine was forcibly incorporated into the Soviet Union. Here again, it expanded. And what do we fear today? That if Ukraine falls, they're going to go into Poland, they're going to go into the Baltic states, and that's his vision. He wants his empire back. Stalin, this happened all under Stalin during this time, in 32, 33. He wanted to annihilate Ukrainian population, which is what Putin wants to do now, to terrorize the surviving Ukrainian population into submission, to provide funds, and this is the important part, to provide funds for Soviet industrial expansion and the purchase of machinery from the West. How was he going to do it? He stole grain from the farmers. As he stole the grain, he exported it all. Farmers were dying, and it's not just Ukrainians, there were other people living in the area. If we do not begin correcting the situation in Ukraine immediately, we could lose Ukraine. The objective should be to transform Ukraine in the shortest possible time. And again, this was written by Stalin. This was his objective, just like Putin's objective now. After consolidating power, Stalin institutes the 5-year plan between 28 and 33. Now, mind you, my mother, who was born in 1932 and lived in Lviv in the West, the people in the West knew nothing about what was happening in the East. They were clueless. The West was under Poland, the East was being slowly taken over by Russia. They wanted to abolish private industry, nationalize commerce, collectivize farms. You can't tell a farmer how to farm. A farmer knows how to farm. Just like you can't tell a doctor how to do things. They know how to do things, right? Leave it to the professionals. But yet they collectivized it. And they imposed grain quotas. By mid-32, nearly 75% of the farms were forcibly collectivized. Villagers are brought under government control. Farmers who resisted are shot and sent to Siberia. My great-grandfather was a landowner. My father was from the Donbass region. We know what's happening in the Donbass region, right? It's all Putinized. They came up to my great-grandfather's land. They were landowners. They said, "We now have your land." And how do I know this? Verbal history. They said, "We now have your land." There was resistance. What did they do? They took them, put them against the wall, and boom. Dog barked. What they do? Shoot the dog. How my grandparents and my father got out is a miracle. It's a miracle when you talk about the survivors. And yet, when they came here, they remembered. Farmers present by themselves the basic force of a national movement. Without farmers, there's no strong national movement. This is what we mean when we say that the national question is the farmer's question. And Stalin knew this. Stalin targeted the rural population, villages inhabited by ethnic Ukrainians to preserve the Ukrainian culture, language, and spirit of independence. Before this invasion, for years, in order for anybody to get anywhere in Ukraine, they had to learn Russian. So most of my Ukrainian friends, and I speak Ukrainian, but I was born here. Both my parents are from Ukraine. But anybody in Ukraine learned Ukrainian at home. But in order to advance in the professional world, they had to speak Russian. So Russian was instilled in all of these people. So that's why when sometimes people here say, "Oh, it's a civil war because they speak Russian, they are Russian." No, they were forced to learn Russian.
So did you speak Russian?
I'm sorry?
Did you speak Russian?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And when I hear it, I actually say to the person, either speak English to me or Ukrainian. There's such an aversion inside of me because of what they're doing. Understand that in the beginning of this invasion, they were raping babies. You know how we heard that 40 Israeli children were beheaded in the beginning when Hamas invaded? Your mind cannot wrap around what's happening. Here they were raping babies. When the mothers were screaming, they cut their tongues out. This is personal information that I received from people that are being raped. And this was happening in Bucha. We know what happened after the fact, right? When people started coming into Bucha and seeing what was happening. And Bucha was only one example.
Do you mind me asking a question?
No, go ahead.
The other countries that you identified, the surrounding countries that can be next in this persecution currently.
Well, Belarus, which used to be a friendly with us, they were like brothers.
Right.
And again, we all worked together. Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, we were all friendly. There was a crossing over of the borders, no problem, until this guy got in his head that he wanted to create his empire again, which is...
But are the other surrounding countries that you
Poland
mentioned?
is very helpful.
Yeah, so of all those other 6 countries that are surrounding Ukraine now, are they, you think, afraid?
Oh, yes.
Of,
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. This is why they're helping Ukraine fight its war against Russia. There's no boots on the ground from us or from any of these other countries,
Right.
although there are, some of the countries are sending their people in if they can get in and they want to help. There are American military there that are retired. It's not like we put them in there, they took it upon themselves to go in. Yes? Oh, in Ukrainian it is Holodomor. We roll our R's. But this is Holo, and what it did is Holo is starvation, what it is to kill. So this was a word that came about because of what was going on at the time. Areas affected by the Holodomor. Again, this is the western part by Poland. This was under Poland for a very long time, and then it got its independence. And this was all under the Russian regime. So people living here had no idea what was happening in the east, where my father was from. Ukraine is the only Soviet republic whose borders were sealed. They purposely sealed the borders so people could not get out and tell their story. So they were forcing them to die. I do remember a story that my father told me. And again, I've never written anything down. I blame myself for not reporting verbal history. Verbal history is so important. He was stuck between a town, a village. The Germans were on one side, the Russians were on the other, and they were forcing them to stop. They were not allowing any further. So I have yet to track down this town, looking through history books, but verbal history is important. So this is the only country where the Soviets closed down the borders to prevent food from coming in. In 1932, there is a 5 years of foreign law imposed, the death penalty or 10 years imprisonment, and this is only for picking a few ears of grain from the fields, which had previously belonged to the farmers. Grain quotas are increased by 44%. Special brigades of communist activists are sent to remove all the food. They would kill you if you dug up a potato and they found that you were eating something. They would rather see you starve. Moscow refuses offers of food from other countries and humanitarian organizations. Labels reports of a famine as anti-Soviet propaganda, so they denied anything that was happening. Exports enough grain from Ukraine to feed the entire population, and yet people were starving. Foreign journalists are banned from traveling to Ukraine. However, there was a Welsh journalist, and I have just 2 copies of this. You can get this film actually on Amazon. This is Garrett Jones. He actually snuck into Ukraine and documented what was happening there. There's a book out, there's a film out. Eventually they did get him, I believe in Turkey. They found him and killed him. In 1933, at the height of the famine, Ukrainian villagers were dying at the rate of 17 people per minute, 1,000 per hour, 25,000 per day. There were over 10 million people that were forcibly starved. And again, these were all nationalities that were involved in this murderous act. The joint statement by 65 UN member states adopted by the 58th UN General Assembly in November of 2003 acknowledged the Great Famine. But what they have not acknowledged was that this is a genocide, because this was targeting a specific ethnicity, a specific group of people. And yet the UN will not acknowledge this, because why? Who sits in the UN? Who's a member? Russia. They will never agree to this. So mass graves started to be unearthed many years later. In desperate attempts, villagers abandoned children in urban areas which were less affected by starvation, and that's exactly what the Soviets told my grandmother. In late spring 1933, over 300,000 children reported homeless in the Kiev region. Doctors were not allowed to put starvation as a cause of death. Any mention of the Holodomor was a crime against the state. And again, with statistics, in 1926, there was about 31 million Ukrainians, and in 1939, there was 28 million, a deficit of 11%. The 1937 census revealed a sharp decrease. Those who conducted the census were shocked, and all of this information was suppressed. Arthur Koestler, a British novelist, until the ravages of the famine in the Ukraine, hordes of families in rags begging at the railway stations, women lifting up to the compartment window their starving brats, which with drumstick limbs, big cadaverous heads, and puffy bellies, looked like embryos out of an alcohol bottle. This is horrific. Gareth Jones, he's a hero, and Malcolm Muggeridge traveled to Ukraine in secrecy. They wanted to document this. Gareth talked to a group of women. We're starving, 2 months, we've hardly had bread. We're from Ukraine and we're trying to go north. They're dying quietly in the villages. Kolhosses are terrible. They won't give us any train tickets and we don't know what to do. Can't buy bread for money. Again, here's, what is this reminiscent of? The Holocaust.
Gas chambers.
So they were targeting Jewish people in the Holocaust. Here they're targeting Ukrainians. So a quarter of the rural population, men, women, and children, lay dead or dying, the rest in various stages of debilitation. Again, Russia, just like today, is crippling the Ukrainian nation. Loss of Ukrainian leaders, loss of the educated classes. 80% of Ukrainian intellectuals are executed. Entire villages were depopulated and repopulated with the Russians. Destruction of the Ukrainian language, traditions, and spirit, and independence. The assault by famine on the Ukrainian peasant population was accompanied by a wide-ranging destruction of Ukrainian cultural and religious life and slaughter of the Ukrainian intelligentsia. As it is in today's world, Ukraine, for the most part, was Orthodox. We are Orthodox Christian. They were under the Moscow Patriarchy of the Moscow Orthodox Church. The patriarch in Moscow is Kirill. Kirill is an ex-KGB agent. How do you have a man of the cloth, a religious person, as a KGB agent? He blessed the Russian soldiers before they went into battle in Ukraine, this is fact, and said, rape, murder, and kill as many Ukrainians as you can. Have you ever heard a rabbi say that? It's blasphemy. It's like, how do you go against your religion? He's not a religious person. What is the definition of a genocide? Any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group by killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. We don't have exact numbers, but it's estimated that over 250,000 Ukrainian children have been forcibly deported into Russia, into parts unknown, into Siberia, elsewhere. They're trafficked. They've taken their passports away. They've changed their names. They've adopted them out. They've trafficked them out. It is horrific. This is a genocide. This is a genocide. And yet the world looks at this and just with blinders on. And we question whether we should send airplanes into Ukraine to stop the war. Why are we prolonging this thing? Stop the war. You know, and I'm not saying to keep sending money and feeding the war, but it could have been stopped. And there are groups out there now trying to locate these children, but it's not easy. Because once their names are changed, it's hard to get them. Margaret Brennan, who's on Sunday, I think Channel 2 at 10 o'clock, she had an interview with some of 3 children, I think, that were rescued, and they gave an interview. So I think it's on YouTube. Margaret Brennan, Ukrainian children that were taken by Russia. Genocide of Ukrainians, a deliberate attempt to crush the Ukrainian nation as evidenced by witness accounts and laws, not a result of natural calamity, not a poor harvest. This was intentional. The grain is exported while the farmers who produce it are dying. Intellectual and religious segment of the nation are destroyed through massive arrest, deportation, and firing squads. Raphael Lemkin coined the word genocide, states that the Holodomor is a case of genocide or destruction, not of individuals, but a culture and a nation, and it's happening in today's world as well. The classic example of Soviet genocide, its longest and broadest experiment in Russification, the destruction of the Ukrainian nation. Here again, this is the Chicago newspaper. In 1988, U.S. Congress on the Ukraine famine conducted that Joseph Stalin and those around him committed genocide. But they haven't formally accepted that. Why is the Holodomor virtually unknown in the West? And I'm going to stop here and ask, has anybody ever heard of this before? Never done. First time. It's horrific, isn't it? It's just as horrific as the Holocaust. And no one is trying to take away from the Holocaust. The Holocaust existed. It happened. And we need to keep talking about it so that it doesn't happen again, right? And the same thing here. But it is happening. So the truth of the matter is that we have a certain amount of information about the famine conditions in the south of Russia. We do not want to make it public because the Soviet government would resent it and our relations with them would be prejudiced. This is from the UK, Foreign Minister. There's no actual starvation or death from starvation, but there is widespread mortality from diseases due to malnutrition. Isn't this a play on words? And it's the same thing that's happening now. We cannot send planes to Ukraine because Putin is going to push that nuclear button. Is he? Really? Or is he just playing with us? The guy is a kook, we know that. But
Can I just say something? You know
Sure.
what? This just came to me. It just came to me that I think the withholding of food has started a lot of wars for our wars, like we're talking now about malnutrition, even though we're a country with a lot of food. In Germany, families were not allowed to get kosher food. Hitler, the laws of discrimination started when Jews weren't allowed, they didn't want to slaughter, shochet animals anymore. So families could not get kosher food. It was one of the first signs of anti-Semitism. And, it seems like we have to be careful. It's just dawned on me with our food discrepancies
our
here.
food is always used as
And
a
even
weapon.
and there too. And it's just there's a thread that I'm seeing with wars as the first form of discrimination or withholding of something.
It's a weapon. And this is how people that want to control. The
Yeah.
scary part now is that Putin is meeting with Xi. He's meeting with that little rocket man, whatever, Trump called in North Korea. I don't know. I don't remember his name, but I remember that phrase. And Iran, right? So they're not necessarily bad people that live there, but the people that are in power are looking for more. And they're looking for more on the backs of the innocent people. And that's the scary thing. How do we stop it?
Seems like that's the way it always is.
Yes. Yes.
Even what we do with farmers.
The people are good, right?
Absolutely.
Who wants a war? I don't want a war. I want to visit my family in Ukraine. I can't. So, our reporting served Moscow's purpose of smearing the facts out of recognition and declaring a situation which, had we reported simply and clearly, might have worked up enough public opinion abroad to force remedial measures. And every correspondent, each in his own way, was guilty of collaborating in this monstrous hoax on the world. In 1933, at the height of the famine, what did the U.S. do? The government officially recognizes the Soviet Union. Gee, we could be friends. In 1934, instead of saying, hey, stop what you're doing, right? In 1934, the Soviet Union became a member of the League of Nations. We reward these people. Here we go. The two monsters of the time, Hitler and Stalin. They're not any different. They murdered people on both sides. And after the Jews would have been eliminated, Ukrainians were next from Hitler. That was his plan. His plan was, so between the Soviets and him, we have no recourse. And at the end of World War II, because Russia somehow helped fight against the other idiot, the U.S. said, okay, you want Ukraine? Just take it. And that's what happened. They fell into communist hands. Is communism comparable to Nazism? Yeah, they're both totalitarian regimes which not only denied human rights but were responsible for the loss of millions of lives. At the beginning of World War II, the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany had been allies for almost 2 years. Communism and Nazism are and always were morally indistinguishable. It is thought by some historians that the Holodomor was a precursor of the Holocaust. Some historians believe that without the Holodomor, which was committed with complete impunity, the Holocaust may not have happened. I don't really believe that. I think that Hitler had his sights on a certain ethnic and religious group. Nazi leaders were punished for their crimes that they committed against humanity, yet to this day, not one communist person or leader has been brought to justice. And this is the disconnect. Soviet Union lasted 70 years, covered a larger land area than Nazism, affecting more people. So there are plenty of witness testimonies. They're in those books. There are other books. There's a whole bunch of historical papers and documents. Where did all the bread disappear? I do not really know. Maybe they have taken it all abroad. The authorities have confiscated it, removed from the villages, loaded grain into the railway coaches, and took it away someplace. They have searched the houses, taken away everything to the smallest thing. All the vegetable gardens, all cellars were raked out, and everything was taken away. If you watch the film on Gareth Jones, because he did uncover the truth and documented it, in the film, he had stopped by a house, and there were 2 children there living. He said, "Where's your mother?" Died. There was a 3rd brother. And they said, yes, he's in the backyard. He was laying there dead. And guess what they were doing? And feeding themselves off the body of the brother. So were people eating others? Yes, in order to survive. I mean, it's horrific when we talk about it and think about it. In February of '33, there were so few children left that the schools were closed. There's not even a cat, dog, or sparrow in the village. It was forbidden for people to leave their villages. The GPU guards blocked all roads and railways. I mean, they're doing that now. In some of the Ukrainian towns, you cannot escape, especially in that town where they have the 5 nuclear plants. They're holding the Ukrainian engineers into overseeing those nuclear plants. Right? We know what happened to Chernobyl. So they are blockading everybody from leaving, and they're forcing them to stay. Any food that the farmers happened to be carrying was taken away from them. For picking a stray head of wheat or a frozen potato, or a beet left in the field, a person was sentenced to 10 years, or the concentration camps. Why are Ukrainians pressing for recognition of Holodomor as a genocide? This is to remember and to pay tribute to all of those millions that have died. We cannot forget them, just like you cannot forget the Holocaust victims. We cannot forget these people. To condemn the crimes of the Soviet communist government, we need to bring somebody into being accountable and to get this into being recognized by many people. To raise awareness that food is still being used as a weapon. Help prevent such deplorable acts from happening again. And that cross there, that's a monument to the victims of the Holodomor. Every November, the 3rd Saturday of November, in New York City, in St. Patrick's Cathedral, we have a memorial for the victims. For the longest time, Congressman Hitchie would come. I don't know if all of you remember Congressman Hitchie. God rest his soul. He was a wonderful man. He would always come and say a few words. His family's from Odessa. Where's Odessa? Ukraine. We still have Senator Schumer coming every year. There's only one time he didn't come. 2 years ago, I think it was, his father died, his father passed, so he couldn't make it. We all understand, right? But I'm very grateful that these folks have come and continue to come to recognize this as a deplorable genocide and to remember the victims. So food is used as a political weapon. In the 20th century, we have China. Mao Zedong, the Great Leap Forward, 5860, tens of millions died of starvation. In Ethiopia, the communist regime in 74. Cambodia, the communist Khmer Rouge, 75. Government of Pol Pot was responsible for the death of 2 million. And we have the Armenian genocide. We have so many genocides that we need to recognize, or we have recognized, but we need to continue to talk about and never forget these people. Understand that these families are gone. We don't even know the names of all of these families that have been wiped off the earth. We have no idea.
It's interesting that you say that, because last weekend when we had the speakers, they were coincidentally, because I don't pre-hear what people are saying, but last weekend they were talking about their families and saying that when they had to do the family tree, it was like, it's my parents, I don't know, and they said teachers would be like, what do you mean it's your parents? Like, go back. And they said, no, there is no going back. We don't have records. And they said that now some of them are saying we shouldn't give those assignments because there are people who, like, I can go back to my parents,
That's
maybe
your
my grandparents. That's where it starts. There is no back. So when you're saying that, they afterwards they were talking about how that needs to, like, we need to bring awareness to the fact that
Those people are wiped off the face of the earth.
right, and very carefully, like you were saying when you had that symbol of the Ukrainian like remembrance.
Yes.
It's like with the Daffodil Project. They're
Yes.
saying like we do this to commemorate the children who perished.
Yes.
Because without the children there is nothing next
There is nothing, and all of
generation.
like somebody said to me, I don't know who it was, all of our great DNA is being leaked out and hemorrhaged to Russia, because that's what they're doing. They're taking it.
And when we designed, or actually worked with Colin and the Daffodil Project to design the smaller pin, we did the blue and yellow, to honor the Daffodil Project and also.
And again, Russia has destroyed a lot more records. My family came here, my father came, from wherever he was coming from, and they met here, they married here. So my mother's from the West, my father's from the East, right here. Two different thoughts, just like the North and the South here, right? Two different types of mentalities, although they were both Ukrainian. My father surviving the Holocaust, the Holodomor, Holodomor, and my mother from the West under Poland. Two different types of experiences, and yet they brought very little with them. As I'm digging through some of the pictures, I did tell you that I found a picture of my mother in Holodomor, Germany. It was a DP camp. So, our histories, our experiences are very similar. So there's no difference. We both experienced the same type of extermination, prejudice, and deplorable acts. And it has to stop. But only by understanding the genocides of the past can we hope to prevent others from occurring in our lifetime. And this is the sources. I have some copies over there if anybody is interested. I do have a YouTube video that I can send to Hope if anybody wants to link to it. It's very informative. But again, in memory of my father and a lot of the other victims that I know, we cannot forget, and we have to talk about this and keep their spirits alive. So thank you. Thank you for there's some books there, there's some things out there. These are also, I had a whole bunch of these copies, so everyone is welcome to this. It's informative as well. Gareth Jones, there is that film, you can get that, and there's another link that I can send to Hope if she wants to post it for The Harvest of Sorrow. That is a film as well that was made many years ago. So thank you again.